Hey everyone, welcome back. It's nice to have all of you back to another episode of Yin's Squawk Box. I think this market is doing very well, and I think this market is going for all-time high at a record high of 3,400. Let's put a horizontal line, boom. So, without getting into the details, I know that we've been talking about this for a while now, and I know that I've been strangely optimistic about this market, right? I was talking about buying this market starting from this day, I believe, a little bit earlier than the bottom. Let's put on cross. I believe I started buying myself in terms of this area, to be perfectly honest. As you can see, it's not a bottom, okay? I'm not 100% right. I'm talking about an area that I'm comfortable enough to say, in terms of a probabilistic statement, the price is at the bottom certain percentage. And if I'm happy with the percentage right there on the chart, then I'm gonna stick with those numbers. So worst case scenario, you're going to get stopped out, right? That's why we have the stop loss order of 3%, 5%, 10%, etc. So in this area, I believe I added, let's put a horizontal line. That's going to be the bottom. Let's put a cross. Now, obviously, I don't know that's the bottom. If I know that's the bottom, I would have waited for that day and put all my money into the stock market. That did not happen. I didn't do that. I hazard a guess, right? When I got in, I was prepared that this thing goes down another 5%, 10%, something like that. So that being said, it happened to be the case that the market stopped going down at that day, and it bounced back up from there. So as it's bouncing back up, we're talking about the trend line. The trend line is referring to levitating resistance and levitating support. So that's the trend line for resistance. That's another trend line for support. So this channel going all the way up. And right now we are here at 3,300. Let's put a horizontal line. And it's right in the middle of this small gap here, right? So let's make sure this is noticeable. Boom. And then another thing here. So this small gap here, it's the initial trigger of this small crash or correction, depending on your wording and depending on the language that you use, of this entire pandemic, right? We have this top of the market, let's put across, and once this gap is triggered, we have a 3 to 4 week of downwards, of going down here, of this channel. Let's put a trend line, boom. That's going to be the downtrend. That's going to be the downtrend that we form. So when we talk about downtrend, we're talking about descending support and descending resistance. Essentially, we're talking about lower lows and lower highs. So with that being said, once this lower resistance is breached, let's put a horizontal line, and you can put a trade there, right? A couple of the guys on the trader, they're looking for some sort of setup like that. And they put the trend line, something like that. And then once it breached, right, potentially another trade can be there. It gaps up, that could be a buy. Let's put a cross, boom. That's gonna be the trade. And they made some money, it's a good trade. So good for them, right? Now, the stock is here at 3306 and we're heading directly to 3400. Tomorrow, I think the goal is just to touch 3400. If not, we're gonna reach that end of the week or potentially later in August. So with that being said, let's talk about a couple of leading names in this equity market. First name is obviously Apple. Apple is financially engineered to go up because of stock buyback, because of its cash on its books, because of all those things that we've been talking about. But if you look at the chart, we have this top of the market, along with the pandemic, we have this trend down. That's the bottom. That's the end of March. Let's pull across, and we have this entire uptrend bounce back up along with the market. Boom. Something like that, it's interesting. Here, we have a little bit of caveat with the talk and the hearings with the Congress. Then we have a small correction down here, poking into the moving average. As moving average catch up, stock bounce back up, along with good earnings, boom. That's gonna be the gap trigger for this next rally of Apple. Now, I'm not saying this rally is gonna keep going up. Eventually, there's gonna be another correction, another pullback. But hey, it's a leading name. It's already financially engineered to be positioned uniquely in this market. And I don't think this name is gonna fail. What's the next name that people are interested in? Microsoft. I think Microsoft is quite interesting. This pop is actually a little bit of unprecedented, right? Before the pandemic, pretty much most of the stock are starting to flatten out. And Microsoft actually gave the boost, right? Well, I'm talking about this small jump here. And when the crash happened, it's not that fast and furious. It's actually slow and calm, right? So let's put another trend line. Boom, that's gonna be the bottom. If you bought on that day, good for you. But eventually the stock came back up. Now we're at all-time highs. Boom. So there you go. When you look at the market, it's like an average performance, right? It's like you look at the average grade of a class. You can also look at the students who are scoring the A's and A pluses in the class, right? And these are the students who are scoring A's and pluses. Besides Apple, besides Microsoft, what are our names? Facebook. Facebook could be interesting. This actually is what traders consider a bull flag. Me personally, I don't really trade off that pattern, but just by looking at this pattern, I believe it could be something interesting here. Let's put a levitating resistance. Let's put a cross there, and here we can take a look at this channel, and we have this uptrend. Boom. So there you go. That's going to be your bull flag. And the bull flag theory is saying, which I don't really believe that's true, that the next jump is going to be the length of the pole. So what I'm talking about is this length here. That's going to be consistent with the trend, consistent with the time frame, especially we're talking about April and May. So perhaps here we're talking about a little bit of July, starting from the entire August and September, and perhaps this chart can look something like that, which means Facebook could potentially go to $300. Now, that's a pretty big drop, so just want to point that out. Me personally, I think this is more empirical than science, but people do trade off this pattern, and it's out there as a reference. Another name is Google. Along with Facebook and Amazon, Google is also at the hearings in front of the Congress. So I believe that's a couple of days before here. Let's put across. That's an area when the hearing happened. I had a little bit pull back, and I don't think it did well on the earnings. Let's put a vertical line, and that's how the stock looked like. Here, I actually think there might be a small bounce back up here, and the reason being moving average catch up, along with the levitating support, something like that. Then the stock could potentially go back up. That's going to be the direction. I think there could be a good amount of room to go for this name. So there you go. Now let's go back to QQQs, which is the entire large cap altogether as one ETF index. Look at this trend. Boom. Levitating resistance. Boom. Levitating support. Now we're at all-time high. So if QQQs is poking into the all-time high, and tomorrow is going to get going, then S&P 500, that's going to be going up for sure. And it's very likely that we're hitting above 3,400 in the very near future. So there you go. I hope you liked today's episode. Be mindful of the mechanics going out there in the equity market. It's not as straightforward. It's not as transparent as you might think. It's certainly not as consistent as the news and social medias and what those contents are covering. Now, of course, this is not to look down at the social media. They certainly have their perspective, and it's important to have a different perspective. The point being, the social media have a different agenda. They're not there to help you make money in the stock market. And if any, they're there to grab your eyes. How do you grab people's attention? Most likely two things: greed and fear. Don't succumb to these emotions. Let them go. As an independent and critical thinker, you want to override them. You want to overcome them. You want to wield human will on top of science and technology. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next episode.